They thought I was just a pretty face. They thought I'd sit quietly, sign the papers, and walk out of that boardroom defeated. But when you underestimate the woman who owns the only thing keeping your company alive, you pay the price. And Nathan Cole, that arrogant trust fund baby, was about to learn what happens when you corner someone who built the very foundation you're standing on. He wanted my patents. He wanted my silence. What he got was the complete destruction of everything his father built. My name is Jesse Carter, and at 32, I was the youngest systems architecture lead Volonix Systems had ever hired. Not that anyone cared about that achievement anymore. What mattered to them was how I looked in a pencil skirt during board presentations. Apparently, the morning everything changed started like any other. I arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., coffee in one hand, laptop bag slung over my shoulder. The Seattle skyline stretched endlessly beyond our floor-to-ceiling windows, gray clouds promising another day of rain. I loved this view. I'd earned this view through 6 years of 80-hour weeks, breakthrough innovations, and code that became the backbone of everything Volonix touched. That's when I first saw him. Nathan Cole stood in what used to be our old CEO's office, hands in the pockets of a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, even from across the floor. His smugness radiated like heat from asphalt, dark hair perfectly styled, jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes that swept over the engineering floor like a king surveying peasants. "That's the new CEO's son," Marcus whispered beside me, my senior developer and one of the few people I trusted in this place. "Nathan Cole. Word is Daddy's grooming him to take over operations." I watched Nathan's gaze land on me. His eyes traveled from my face down to my heels and back up again, slow and deliberate. A smile curved his lips, not the professional kind you give colleagues, but the type that made my skin crawl. "Jesse Carter." His voice carried across the space as he approached. "I've been reviewing the organizational charts. You're the systems architecture lead." "That's correct." I kept my voice neutral, professional. He stopped just inside my personal space, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne. "Interesting. I expected someone more technical-looking." Marcus stiffened beside me. I felt the familiar burn of anger in my chest, but I'd played this game before. "I assure you, Mr. Cole, my appearance has no correlation with my ability to architect the AI systems that generate 90% of this company's revenue." "AI systems." He said it like he was tasting wine. "Right. The Project Astra initiative. I'll be taking a special interest in that. We're planning some restructuring." The way he said restructuring made my stomach drop. In corporate speak, that word was cancer. "The Astra architecture is built on proprietary frameworks I developed," I said carefully. "Any changes would need to go through extensive review." "I'm sure we'll figure it out," he cut me off with a wave of his hand. "Pretty girls like you shouldn't worry about the business side. Focus on making things look good for the demos. That's what you're really here for, isn't it?" The silence that followed was deafening. Every developer within earshot had stopped typing. Marcus looked ready to throw a punch. I smiled. It was the kind of smile I'd perfected over years of dealing with men like Nathan Cole, sharp enough to draw blood if you looked too close. "Mr. Cole, I hold 6 patents on the core technology that Astra runs on. I wrote every line of the foundational code. I architected the neural networks that your father's company is about to stake its entire future on. So when you say, 'I'm here to make things look good,' I assume you mean the $800 million valuation those pretty little algorithms of mine just earned in our Series D funding." His face flushed. Good. "Now, if you'll excuse me," I continued, turning to my desk, "I have real work to do. The kind that requires more than a trust fund and Daddy's last name." Nathan's jaw clenched. He leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear. "You should be careful how you talk to me. Things are about to change around here, and I have a long memory." After he stalked off, Marcus let out a low whistle. "Jesse, that guy's bad news." I stared at my monitor, but my mind was racing. Nathan Cole wasn't just another entitled executive's son playing at business. The way he'd mentioned Astra, The way he'd looked at me like I was an obstacle to be removed rather than the person who'd built everything he wanted to control. I pulled up my patent documentation, all 6 of them, and started backing up everything to my personal drives. Call it paranoia or call it instinct, but I'd learned long ago that when men like Nathan Cole felt threatened by women like me, they didn't fight fair. They thought I was just another pretty face who'd roll over when pushed. They had no idea what they'd just started. 3 weeks later, I discovered exactly what Nathan Cole meant by restructuring. It was 11:45 p.m. on a Thursday, and I was still in the office debugging a critical update when I noticed unusual activity on our development servers. Someone was accessing the core AI architecture files, my files, through a backdoor I didn't recognize. My fingers flew across the keyboard, tracing the intrusion. The access credentials led back to Tom Brennan, one of our junior engineers. But Tom didn't have clearance for these systems. Hell, only 3 people in the entire company did, and I was one of them. I pulled up the security footage on my second monitor. There was Tom, hunched over his desk in the East Wing, typing furiously, and standing right behind him, arms crossed, was Nathan Cole. My blood turned to ice. I grabbed my phone and started recording my screen, documenting every file they accessed, every line of code they copied. They weren't just viewing the architecture, they were systematically extracting the entire blueprint of my AI framework. Years of my work, my innovations, my intellectual property being stolen right in front of me. The next morning, I was called into an urgent strategy meeting for Project Astra. The conference room was packed. Nathan, his father Charles Cole, the entire board, and several faces I didn't recognize in expensive suits. "Jesse, glad you could join us," Charles said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "We're accelerating Astra's launch. The market window is closing, and we need to move fast." Nathan smirked from across the table. "We've been conducting a thorough review of the technical infrastructure. Some concerns have been raised about dependencies." Dependencies. I kept my voice steady. "The current architecture seems overly reliant on certain proprietary elements," Nathan continued, sliding a document across the table. "We need to ensure Volonix has complete ownership of all critical components." I picked up the document. It was a technology transfer agreement, demanding I assign all rights to my patents to Volonix Systems for a one-time payment of $50,000. Insulting didn't begin to cover it. "These patents were developed independently, before and outside my employment here," I said, pushing the document back. "They're licensed to Volonix under specific terms. That's been the arrangement for 3 years. "Arrangements change," Charles interjected. "We're about to announce a $2 billion product launch. We can't have external dependencies." "External?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm your systems architecture lead. There's nothing external about it." Nathan leaned forward. "Actually, we've been building redundancies, alternative frameworks that won't require your cooperation." That's when it clicked. The late-night extraction. Tom Brennan. The sudden urgency. They weren't building alternatives, they were trying to reverse engineer my work, create a derivative that they could claim as company property. "That would be patent infringement," I said quietly. "My lawyers would have a field day." The room went silent. Charles's face darkened. "Are you threatening us, Ms. Carter?" "I'm stating facts. Astra runs on my patented technology. You can't launch without it, and you can't replicate it without violating federal law." Nathan slammed his hand on the table. "This is exactly the kind of attitude problem I've been documenting. You seem to forget you're an employee here. And you seem to forget that employment doesn't equal ownership of my pre-existing intellectual property." I stood up. "Gentlemen, I've been nothing but cooperative. I've licensed my patents to Volonix at favorable terms. But if you're attempting to steal my work—" "Nobody's stealing anything," Charles cut in smoothly. "We're simply trying to protect our investment. Surely you understand that." I understood perfectly. They wanted to cut me out, take my technology, and probably terminate me once they thought they had what they needed. The video from last night burned in my mind evidence of their attempted theft. "I need to review this with my legal counsel," I said, heading for the door. Nathan's voice followed me. The launch is in 6 weeks. Jesse, we need this resolved, one way or another. Back at my desk, I immediately called Rachel Mears, my intellectual property attorney. Rachel, we have a problem. They're trying to force a transfer and simultaneously stealing my code. Do you have proof? I sent her the screen recording. Crystal clear, time-stamped, showing unauthorized access to protected systems. Jesse, this is serious. If they launch Astra using your technology without proper licensing, it's a $500 million minimum in damages. I know. I lowered my voice. Rachel, I want you to fast-track additional patent applications on every variation and improvement I've made. Lock it all down. That'll put them in a corner. I thought about Nathan's smug face, his father's threats, the way they'd assumed I'd just roll over. Good. Let them squirm. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in corporate warfare, and I was playing chess while Nathan thought we were playing checkers. First, I spent an entire weekend backing up everything, not just the code, but every email, every design document, every timestamp showing when I'd created each innovation. I encrypted it all and stored copies in 3 different secure locations, including one with Rachel. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd be ready with receipts. At 3:15 a.m. on Monday, I implemented my first countermeasure. I pushed an update to the core architecture, nothing that would break anything, but I added authentication layers that only I could fully access. Think of it as changing the locks on a house you built. They could still use the front door, but if they wanted to renovate or claim ownership, they'd find every wall was load-bearing and only I had the blueprints. What the hell did you do? Tom Brennan cornered me that morning, sweat beading on his forehead. I can't access half the system modules anymore. I sipped my coffee calmly. Security update. Given the recent unauthorized access attempts, I thought it was prudent. You know, the ones from last Thursday night around 11:45. His face went white. We both knew I had him dead to rights. Nathan made me. I don't care what Nathan made you do. Tom, you accessed restricted systems without authorization. That's a federal crime under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. I let that sink in. But I'm feeling generous. Walk away now. Keep your mouth shut, and I won't press charges. He practically ran from my office. That afternoon, Rachel called with good news. The patent expansions are filed. Every variation, every improvement, every potential derivative is now locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Perfect timing, I said, watching Nathan storm across the office floor toward me. We need to talk, he snarled, slamming my door shut. What did you do to the system? I secured my intellectual property. Standard security protocols. You're sabotaging the launch. I'm protecting my legal rights. There's a difference. I pulled up the licensing agreement on my screen. Volonix has full usage rights as long as they comply with the terms. Attempting to steal or replicate my technology violates those terms. Nathan's face was turning an interesting shade of purple. You think you're so clever. You have no idea who you're messing with. Actually, I do. You're Charles Cole's nepotism hire, who thinks a Harvard MBA means you understand technology you can't even code. You're trying to steal work you don't comprehend to launch a product you can't build without me. We'll sue you into oblivion. Try it. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder, sliding it across to him. That's a cease and desist notice. My lawyer will file it publicly 24 hours before your launch unless Volonix agrees to proper licensing terms. $500 million for exclusive rights, or $50 million annually for non-exclusive usage. Nathan laughed, but it sounded forced. You're insane if you think... I'm not finished. I pulled out my phone and showed him the security footage. This is you directing Tom Brennan to illegally access my protected systems. One click, and it goes to the FBI's cybercrime division. Another click, and it goes to TechCrunch, along with the story of how Volonix's revolutionary AI product is built on stolen technology. The color drained from his face. But I'm reasonable, I continued. Pay for what you use, respect my ownership, and we all win. Try to steal it, and I'll burn Astra to the ground before it even launches." Nathan grabbed the cease and desist, crumpling it slightly in his fist. "This isn't over." After he left, Marcus appeared in my doorway. The entire floor heard that. "Security is taking bets on whether you'll still be here tomorrow." "What are the odds?" 3-1 against you." I smiled. "Put me down for 1,000 on myself." That evening, I got an email from Charles Cole himself. "Ms. Carter, we need to discuss terms. My office, tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I forwarded it to Rachel with a simple note, "They're cracking." But I knew this was far from over. Nathan Cole wasn't the type to accept defeat. He'd come at me another way, and I needed to be ready. I spent the rest of the night documenting every system, every access point, every potential vulnerability they might exploit. At 11:30 p.m., I got an alert on my personal security system. Someone was trying to access my home network, the IP address traced back to Volonic Systems. I screen-capped everything and sent it to Rachel with the subject line, "They're getting desperate." Her response was immediate. "This is criminal harassment now. Want me to involve law enforcement?" I thought about it, then typed back, "Not yet. Let them dig their hole a little deeper." Because the deeper they dug, the harder they'd fall. And I was going to make sure that when Nathan Cole finally hit bottom, he'd know exactly who put him there. The 8 a.m. meeting with Charles Cole was an ambush disguised as a negotiation. I walked into the executive conference room to find not just Charles and Nathan, but 3 lawyers, the entire board of directors, and someone I didn't recognize taking notes in the corner, probably their PR crisis manager. "Jesse, please sit." Charles gestured to a chair at the far end of the table, isolated from everyone else. Classic intimidation tactic. I remained standing. "I'll need my legal counsel present for any formal discussions." "This is just a friendly conversation," Charles said, though his smile was pure predator. "We're all on the same team here." "Are we? Because attempting to hack into my home network last night didn't feel particularly friendly." Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Good. They didn't all know how far Nathan had gone. "Those are serious accusations," one of their lawyers interjected. "Do you have proof?" I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the conference room display. IP logs, trace back to Volonic servers, timestamp 11:32 p.m. Would you like me to share this with the board, or should I skip straight to the FBI? "Enough!" Charles's friendly mask slipped. "What do you want, Jesse?" "What I've always wanted. Fair compensation for my intellectual property, respect for my contributions, and an end to your son's criminal harassment." Nathan couldn't contain himself. "Criminal, you're the one holding the company hostage. I'm exercising my legal rights. There's a difference." I finally sat down, but on my terms. "Gentlemen, ladies, let me be clear. Project Astra is built on 6 core patents I own personally. Without them, you have nothing. The product demo is in 3 weeks. You can either pay for legitimate licensing, or you can explain to investors why your revolutionary AI platform suddenly doesn't work." "You wouldn't dare," Charles said. "Try me." The room erupted, board members demanding explanations, lawyers huddling with Charles, Nathan pacing like a caged animal. I sat perfectly still, letting them spiral. Finally, Margaret Zhao, the lead board member, spoke up. "Ms. Carter, what are your terms?" $500 million for exclusive rights, or $50 million annually for non-exclusive. That's actually below market rate for technology of this caliber. "That's extortion," Nathan shouted. "No, that's business. You want to use my work, pay for it." Charles leaned forward. "And if we refuse?" "Then I exercise my right to revoke the existing license for breach of contract specifically. Your attempts to steal and replicate my protected technology, Astra dies, and I sell my patents to the highest bidder. I already have interest from 3 of your competitors." That was a lie, but they didn't need to know that. Margaret Zhao looked between Charles and me. "We need to discuss this privately. Jesse, can you give us the room?" I stood to leave, then paused at the door. "You have 48 hours, After that, the cease and desist goes public. The rest of the day was psychological warfare. Nathan had his allies spread rumors that I was being terminated. Someone mysteriously canceled my keycard access, which security quickly restored after I raised hell. My company email was suddenly experiencing technical difficulties. But I'd expected all of this. What they didn't expect was my counterstrike. At 2 p.m., I held an impromptu meeting with my entire development team. I want full documentation on every system, every process, every line of code by end of day tomorrow, I announced. Everything gets logged, time-stamped, and backed up.
Jesse, what's going on? Marcus asked.
Insurance. If anything happens to me or my access, you'll need these documents to keep Astra running. Make sure every dependency on my patents is clearly marked. The team exchanged glances. They knew what this meant without my cooperation. Astra was dead in the water. That evening, Nathan cornered me in the parking garage. A security camera was conveniently malfunctioning, but I'd learned to never go anywhere without recording. "You think you're so smart," he hissed, blocking my path to my car. "But you're forgetting something. We can make your life hell. No one in this industry will hire you after we're done."
Is that a threat, Nathan?
It's a promise. Drop this insane demand. Sign over the patents for a reasonable price, and you can keep your career. I stepped closer to him, close enough that he had to look down to meet my eyes. "Nathan, you're under the impression that I need you, that I need Volonics. But here's what you don't understand. I am the product, my mind, my innovations, my patents. You're just a middleman with a trust fund.
You'll regret this."
"The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner." I pushed past him to my car. 46 hours left. "Nathan, tell Daddy to get his checkbook ready." As I drove home, Rachel called. "Jesse, they're getting desperate. I've had 3 different lawyers call me with compromise offers. The highest was $5 million. $5 million for technology worth $500 million minimum. They're insulting us. They're testing boundaries. Stay strong. They need you more than you need them." She was right. But as I pulled into my driveway and saw a black sedan parked across the street, the same one I'd noticed that morning, I realized Nathan and Charles weren't going to give up without a fight. The war was just beginning. 72 hours before the Astra launch, the pressure reached a breaking point. Nathan's email arrived at 6 a.m. on Saturday, marked urgent, with the entire board CC'd. "Jesse, in the interest of moving forward productively, we need your full cooperation by Monday morning. The success of Astra depends on team unity. I trust you'll make the right decision for everyone involved. Translation: surrender or face the consequences." I forwarded it to Rachel with a note. "They're panicking. Prepare the cease and desist for Monday delivery." What Nathan didn't know was that I'd spent Friday night implementing my final safeguard. Every critical system now required dual authentication, mine and a time-locked key that would expire exactly 1 hour before the launch. If they wanted to run Astra without my permission, they'd have to rebuild everything from scratch. In 3 days, impossible. Marcus called me at 9 a.m., whispering, "Jesse, you need to know something. They brought in a whole team of external contractors last night. They're trying to reverse engineer your entire architecture." "Let them try. How's the documentation coming?" "Complete. Every dependency on your patents is highlighted in red. Jesse. It's everything. The neural network, the optimization algorithms, the data pipeline. 90% of Astra is built on your work. Send me a copy, encrypted." By noon, I was getting calls from investors. Somehow, word had leaked that there were technical challenges with Astra. Charles must have been in damage control mode, because by 2 p.m., he'd scheduled an emergency all-hands meeting for Monday morning 1 hour before my deadline. Saturday evening, Rachel called with interesting news. "Jesse, I just got off the phone with Quantum Dynamics' legal team." Quantum Dynamics, Volonics' biggest competitor. "They heard about your patents through the filing system. They're interested, very interested." "How interested?" "They threw out a number, $400 million for exclusive rights. with a position as chief technology architect.
My heart raced. That's not quite 500.
It's a starting point, Jesse. If Volonic sees you have other options, set up a call for Monday afternoon. Make sure it's on my public calendar. Sunday was the calm before the storm. I spent it backing up everything one more time, preparing for every possible scenario. At 11 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Last chance. Take the original offer or lose everything. N. I screenshotted it and added it to my harassment file. Then I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and tried to sleep, knowing Monday would change everything. I arrived at the office at 6:30 a.m. Monday to find security waiting for me. Ms. Carter, we've been instructed to escort you to the executive conference room. Am I being terminated? We're just following orders, ma'am. The conference room was packed again, but this time, there were also several major investors on video screens. Charles had called in the cavalry. Jesse, Charles began, his voice artificially calm. We've worked through the weekend to find a solution. We're prepared to offer you $10 million for the patents, plus a 2% stake in Astra's profits. I did quick math. With projected revenues, that could be worth maybe $40 million over 5 years. Still insulting.
No.
Nathan exploded. You ungrateful. Nathan, enough. Margaret Zhao cut him off. Jesse, the board has discussed this extensively. We believe your demands are unreasonable. If you refuse this offer, we're prepared to move forward without your technology. I pulled out my laptop, connecting to the display. Really, let me show you something. I brought up the system architecture, with every dependency on my patents highlighted in red. The screen looked like it was bleeding. This is Astra. The red parts are built on my patents. Remove them. And you have... I clicked a button, hiding all the red components. The screen went almost entirely blank. Nothing. You have nothing. One of the investors spoke up from the screen. Is this accurate? Ask their CTO, I said. Oh wait, you fired him last month to make room for Nathan. The room erupted in arguments. Charles was shouting at lawyers. Nathan was pacing. Board members were demanding answers. Margaret Zhao raised her hand for silence. Jesse, what will it take? I stood up, straightening my blazer. My terms haven't changed. $500 million for exclusive rights. But since you've wasted my time with these games, the price goes up by $50 million every day you delay after today. That's blackmail, Nathan screamed. No, it's supply and demand. I have the supply. You have the demand. And in 23 hours, you have a launch that will fail spectacularly without my cooperation. I pulled out my phone, showing them my calendar. I have a call with Quantum Dynamics at 2 p.m. They're very interested in exclusive rights, so you have until 1:45 to decide. Charles's face was purple. You planned this all along. No, Charles. I planned to be a loyal employee who was fairly compensated for her innovations. You and your son planned to steal from me. I gestured around the room. This is what happens when you underestimate the person who built your future. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Nathan. That black sedan you had following me, I filed a restraining order this morning. Come near me again, and you'll be explaining yourself to a judge. As I walked out, I heard Margaret Zhao say, Charles, we need to discuss Nathan's future with this company. The countdown had begun. 23 hours until launch. 23 hours until they either paid my price or watched their $2 billion baby crash and burn. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Cease and desist ready to file on your signal. I typed back, load the gun. We're going to war. Monday afternoon was a masterpiece of corporate desperation. At 1:15 p.m., 30 minutes before my quantum dynamics call, Charles and Nathan burst into my office with their lead counsel. $500 million, Charles said without preamble. We'll pay it. I leaned back in my chair. The price is now $550 million. I told you it goes up $50 million per day. Nathan's face contorted. You said after today, and you wasted half of today trying to intimidate me. The offer stands until my call starts in 25 minutes. This is insane. Nathan slammed his fist on my desk. Dad, we can't let her. Shut up, Nathan! Charles's voice was ice. For the first time, I saw him look at his son with genuine disgust. Your incompetence created this mess. Their lawyer stepped forward. Ms. Carter, we need time to draft proper agreements. I have a purchase agreement template right here. I pulled out a folder Rachel had prepared. Sign it now. Wire the funds within 6 hours, and Astra launches tomorrow as planned. Charles grabbed the agreement, scanning it rapidly. This gives you audit rights, board observation privileges. Protection against future theft attempts, non-negotiable. My phone rang. Quantum Dynamics, right on time. I let it ring. Answer it, Charles said, calling my bluff. I picked up, putting it on speaker. Jessie Carter. Ms. Carter, this is David Liu from Quantum Dynamics. We're prepared to offer $450 million for exclusive rights to your patents, plus a signing bonus of $20 million. Nathan went pale. The lawyer started sweating. That's an interesting offer. Mr. Liu, can you send the formal proposal? Already in your inbox. We can close by end of business today. I'll review it and get back to you within the hour. I hung up. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Charles picked up the pen. $500 million. We keep this quiet. And you ensure Astra launches successfully. $550, I reminded him. And I want Nathan removed from any oversight of Astra or my team. Father and son locked eyes. Something passed between them, years of disappointment, failed expectations, and now this ultimate humiliation. Done, Charles said, and signed. Nathan stormed out, but not before turning back. You've destroyed everything. No, Nathan, I just refuse to let you steal it. By 6 p.m., the wire transfer was confirmed. $550 million. Rachel called it the largest single patent transaction in the company's history. But we weren't done yet. At 8 p.m., I was back in the office, preparing for the launch. The entire development team was there, running final checks. The atmosphere was electric. They all knew something had happened, but not the full scope. Jessie, Marcus pulled me aside. Nathan's been clearing out his office. Word is he's being reassigned to the European division. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. At 11:55 p.m., I stood in the server room, watching the final systems check. Everything was green. My authentication keys were active. The patents were legally transferred, but with ironclad protections. Astra would launch successfully, and I'd be able to ensure it stayed that way. My phone buzzed with a message from Charles. The board wants to discuss a new position for you. Chief Innovation Officer, interested. I smiled and typed back, let's see how tomorrow goes first. Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. The Astra launch event was being broadcast globally. Charles stood on stage, confident and commanding. No sign of yesterday's desperation. Nathan was nowhere to be seen. Ladies and gentlemen, today Volonic Systems revolutionizes artificial intelligence. I watched from my office as the demo began. The system purred like a finely tuned engine. Every algorithm, every process, every innovation I'd built performed flawlessly. The audience gasped at the capabilities, the speed, the elegance of the solution. Stock price surged 20% within the first hour. Tech blogs were calling it the launch of the decade. Investors were scrambling to get in on the action. And then, at exactly 9 a.m., I sent an email to the entire company. Team, I'm proud to announce that Volonics has acquired exclusive rights to my patent portfolio for $550 million, ensuring Astra's continued success. This investment in innovation demonstrates the company's commitment to recognizing and rewarding the true builders of our technology. I look forward to our continued partnership. The floor erupted. People were standing at their desks, looking at me through my glass office walls. Some were applauding. Marcus was grinning ear to ear. Margaret Zhao appeared in my doorway. That was quite a power play, Jessie. It wasn't a power play. It was claiming what was mine. The board is furious about the amount, but they can't argue with results. The launch is a massive success." She paused. "Nathan has been relocated to our Dublin office permanently."
And Charles?
Charles is a survivor. He's already spinning this as his brilliant strategy to secure vital technology assets. She smiled. "But he knows who really won this war." I looked out at the Seattle skyline, the same view I'd loved since my first day here. Everything had changed, but I was still here, still building, still innovating. But now, with $500 million and hard-won respect, they'd thought I was just a pretty face. They'd learned otherwise. The euphoria of Tuesday morning's successful launch lasted exactly 3 hours. At 12:15 p.m., everything went to hell. I was in the middle of a congratulatory lunch with my team when my phone exploded with alerts. The Astra dashboard, the beautiful interface showcasing our revolutionary AI, was displaying errors across the board. Red warning lights cascaded across every monitor in our office. "What's happening?" Marcus shouted, already running back to his desk. I pulled up the system diagnostics on my phone. Connection timeouts, authentication failures, database locks. It was like watching a digital heart attack in real time. Then I saw the authentication keys. My time-locked keys that were supposed to remain active had been revoked. Someone had tried to override my access controls, triggering the failsafe I'd built in. The system was protecting itself by shutting down. My phone rang. Charles, screaming before I could even say hello. "What did you do?" "The entire system is crashing. We have clients logged in from around the world." "I didn't do anything. Check your logs. Someone tried to bypass my authentication at 12:10. "Fix it now." I'm on my way to the server room. But when I badged in, my access was denied. Security appeared immediately. "Ms. Carter, we've been instructed not to allow you into restricted areas." "By whose authority?" "Nathan Cole's." My blood froze. "Nathan's in Dublin. He's in the executive conference room, ma'am. Emergency board meeting." I ran to the conference room, finding chaos. Nathan was there, disheveled, clearly having taken a red-eye from Dublin. Charles was purple-faced. Board members were shouting into phones. And on the main screen, the Astra interface showed nothing but error messages. "There she is." Nathan pointed at me. "She sabotaged the launch. She built in a kill switch." "It's not a kill switch," I shot back. "It's a security protocol. Someone tried to remove my access permissions while the system was live. Who authorized that change?" "Nathan." His jaw clenched. "We don't need your permissions anymore. We paid for the patents." "You paid for the rights to use them. The agreement specifically states, I maintain technical oversight for the first year. You violated that agreement, and the system protected itself." Margaret Zhao stood up. "Can you fix it?" "Of course. Give me full access back. Revoke whatever changes Nathan made, and I'll have Astra running in 30 minutes. "Do it," Charles ordered. "No." Nathan stepped forward. "This is what she wants. Don't you see? She's making us dependent on her. We need to break that dependency." "The launch is live." "Nathan," Charles roared. "We have Fortune 500 CEOs watching their demos crash. Fix it now. Ask questions later." I moved to the nearest terminal. "I need admin access restored immediately." The IT director looked between me, Nathan, and Charles, then started typing. "Access restored." I dove into the system, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The damage was extensive but not irreversible. Nathan had tried to clone my authentication tokens, creating a parallel access system. The AI had detected the forgery and locked everything down. 28 minutes, I announced, not looking up from the screen. The room watched in tense silence as I unwound Nathan's changes, restored the proper authentication chains, and carefully brought each system back online. Green lights started replacing red across the dashboard. At 12:51, Astra was fully operational again. The room exhaled collectively. Several board members actually applauded. "Ms. Carter," Margaret Zhao said quietly. "Thank you." Nathan wasn't done. "This proves my point. She has us hostage. What happens next time she decides to throw a tantrum?" I spun to face him. There won't be a next time if you stop trying to steal control of systems you don't understand. Every time you've tried to cut me out, you've nearly destroyed everything. Maybe it's time to accept that some people are actually irreplaceable. You think you're irreplaceable? Nathan laughed bitterly. We'll see about that. Charles stepped between us. Nathan, you're done. Clear out your office. What, Dad? You can't. I can and I am. You cost us $550 million with your ego. You almost destroyed a $2 billion launch because you couldn't accept that Jesse built something you never could. You're not going to Dublin. You're going nowhere near this company again. The room went silent. Nathan looked around for support, found none, and stormed out. Charles turned to me. The CIO position. It's yours if you want it. Full board seat. $4 million base salary plus equity. I looked at the screens showing Astra running perfectly, at my team through the glass walls who'd stood by me, at the board members who'd finally seen my true value. I'll think about it, I said, and walked out. Marcus caught up with me in the hallway. Jesse, that was incredible. You just got everything, the money, the position, Nathan's head on a platter. Did I looked back at the conference room where Charles was damage controlling with investors. Or did I just teach them that they need a better cage for me? So what are you going to do? I thought about the quantum dynamics offer, about the startup ideas I'd been sketching, about the freedom that $550 million could buy. I'm going to make them wait. For once, they can wonder what I'm thinking, what I'm planning. I smiled. Let them sweat a little. The launch continued successfully for the rest of the day. By market close, Volanix stock had risen 32%. Astra was being hailed as revolutionary, and Nathan Cole's LinkedIn profile had been quietly updated to seeking new opportunities. But I knew this wasn't over, not really. The game had just changed, and now I held all the cards. 3 weeks after the launch, I made my final move. I'd spent those weeks watching Volanix's stock soar, reading about Astra's revolutionary impact, and fielding increasingly desperate offers from Charles to lock me into a long-term contract. The CIO position sat waiting, unsigned. Every morning, he'd send a new incentive, more equity, a larger bonus, even a custom Tesla. But I'd already made my decision the moment Nathan tried to destroy everything out of spite. On a gray Thursday morning, I walked into Charles's office for what would be our last negotiation. Jesse, finally, ready to sign? He pushed the CIO contract across his desk, now sweetened to $5 million base salary. Actually, Charles, I'm here to resign. The color drained from his face. You can't be serious. Effective immediately. I've already submitted my formal resignation to HR. But, Astra, the systems will run perfectly fine. I've documented everything, trained the team, and as per our agreement, I'll provide technical consulting for the remainder of the year, remotely. Charles stood up, pacing. Is this about money? Name your price. It's not about money. It's about vision. You and the board see me as a necessary evil, someone to control and contain. I'm done being underestimated. So what, you're going to quantum dynamics? I smiled. No, I'm starting my own company, my own AI firm, built on the next generation of technology I've been developing, the patents you bought. They're already obsolete compared to what I'm building now. His face went from pale to red. You developed that while working here. After hours, on my own equipment, with my own resources, my lawyer already verified completely legal and completely mine. I pulled out my phone, showing him a news article that would go live in an hour. Volanix's former lead architect Jesse Carter launches revolutionary AI startup with $50 million seed funding. $50 million. Where did you... Amazing what doors open when you have a proven track record of building billion-dollar products and $500 million in the bank. Charles slumped in his chair. Jesse, please. Volanix needs you. Volanix needed to respect me. You had your chance. I stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and Charles, 3 of your top engineers already accepted offers at my company. Marcus starts Monday. You're poaching our talent. I'm offering them what you never did: recognition, equity, and a chance to build something without people like Nathan trying to steal credit. I walked out of his office, out of the building, past the view I'd once loved. My Tesla was waiting in the parking lot, not a custom gift from Charles, but one I'd bought myself with my first patent payment. My phone buzzed with messages. Marcus. Can't wait to start Monday. Boss. Rachel. Incorporation papers filed. You're officially a CEO. David Liu from Quantum. Heard about your startup. We'd love to discuss partnership opportunities. But the best message came at 4:23 p.m. as I was setting up my new office space in a converted warehouse in South Seattle. It was a news alert. Volonic stock plunges 18% on news of key technical leaders' departure. By the end of the week, 3 major clients had reached out to me directly, interested in what I was building next. 2 venture capital firms wanted in on my Series A, and Nathan Cole's LinkedIn had been updated again, this time to senior consultant at some no-name firm in Phoenix. 6 months later, my startup's valuation hit $1 billion. We'd landed contracts with 7 Fortune 500 companies, all former Volonics clients who followed me when I left. The technology I developed made Astra look like a calculator compared to a quantum computer. Charles sent me an email on the anniversary of that first meeting with Nathan. You won. Congratulations. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. But sometimes, late at night in my CEO office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seattle skyline, I'd think about that moment Nathan Cole first looked at me like I was just another pretty face to be dismissed and controlled. He'd thought I was weak because I was beautiful. He'd thought I was replaceable because I was a woman. He'd thought he could steal my life's work because his father owned the building. He'd thought wrong. And that $550 million lesson, that was just the tuition for his education in never underestimating the person who holds all the cards. They wanted the goose that laid the golden eggs, but when you try to cage her, clip her wings, and steal her eggs, don't be surprised when she burns down the whole farm and builds her own empire from the ashes. My name is Jessie Carter, and this is how I destroyed the company that tried to destroy me, not with revenge, but with the simple act of knowing my worth and refusing to accept anything less. The best revenge isn't served cold. It's served at exactly the right temperature, with a $550 million price tag, and a view from the top that they'll never reach again. Thank you so much for listening to my story of corporate revenge and knowing your worth. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If this story of standing up to corporate bullies resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts about dealing with workplace injustice. Have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Let me know in the comments.